Now, the thing that happened for me, which some of you may know if you're in the forum, is that 2 or 3 months ago, I was at a corner in my town on a very quiet street, and all of a sudden this car came up, completely rear-ended me. And the entire car, it was my Prius, just crumbled around me like the car was totaled. Now, somehow I was completely fine, but the car was taken. And there was something in that moment. I mean, I was in shock, but by the next morning, there was already this feeling of like the universe was taking the car. Like it was all fine. The car was just being taken in order to open the way for what was next. And very, very quickly, things lined up for, the insurance gave me a payout far beyond anything that car could have ever sold for. And then I just went over and got the new one. And the feeling again, just like that necklace, was like something about blessing it and not being mired in that feeling of like, oh, screw that person who hit me, and it was a total hit and run. I mean, he left right away. And I was talking to the insurance guy about it, actually, and, he goes, look, I've been doing this for 30 years, and he said, the thing I've really seen is that some people get so mad for so long after an accident or after a robbery that they literally, the new can't come in because they're still so stuck in what happened. And he said, you basically had a new car within 5 days, and I think he said I think it's just really because you didn't waste a lot of time and energy being mad at the guy who did it. He goes, somehow you were just like, this was meant to happen. Let me move on and let the universe bring me a new car. So anyway, it's just one more piece of this, that sacrifices sometimes really come in the middle of all this, whether to release what you no longer need, to open up a new cycle. Sometimes they come as a test, just to say, whose is it really? If it's not yours, if it belongs to the divine, it can be replaced in a heartbeat. So many layers of tests can occur. And the last piece I want to say before I go to the questions is that is also tied to another idea I brought up, I think a few weeks ago, which is demonstration of abundance. It's a demonstration of faith. It's called various things. And what that means is when you get into that situation where you're like, wow, everything looked like it was going great, and all of a sudden my most lucrative client has just told me that they're quitting, or whatever. You get that kind of test. In that moment of that test is where you get to make a demonstration of faith. And that can be many different things. That could mean reminding yourself just in that moment, wait a minute, that client who's quitting, she's not my source. God's my source. That amount of money could come back to you 10 different ways. If you make that person your source, then you could start going, oh my God, she's leaving. This is a disaster. She's the one that pays all the bills. No, God's been using her to pay the bills. Now God can use whatever God wants to use next. Do you see what I mean? So often in that moment of a loss of some kind or a disturbance of some kind, you get the opportunity to make a demonstration of faith. And I'll tell you this, connected to that car accident, one of the things that had happened is that 2 weeks before that guy totaled my car, I had just had all the tires replaced on my old Prius. And so to me, that was the demonstration of abundance. One of the first things going through my head as the car was, being towed away was, oh my God, I had just spent $600 on replacing all of those tires. And then I was like, wait a minute, that's God's money. If God wants to blow $600 on replacing all the tires on a car that's about to get totaled, that's none of my business. And that is the demonstration of abundance. When you're holding that state, and, it's classic. There's so many people that have stories like right before their car was stolen, they got everything aligned, or right before, their house was flooded, they had replaced all the carpeting. If you can hold that state of seeing it as demonstrations of faith or demonstrations of abundance, it changes everything. You're no longer angry about the loss. You're like, okay, it's not my money. Let's see what God's going to do next. You sort of move out of a place of bitterness or fear into a place of curiosity. It's literally what happens. And you begin to say, okay, all right, God, that's interesting. Let's see what's going to happen next. I'm open. It's easy for me to receive. It's easy for me to live from a place of abundance and receptivity. So